Hey, this is Dan from Tiny Home Builders, and in this video I'm going to be doing a technical review of a Getaway Tiny House. Now, if you've never heard of Getaway Tiny Houses, there's a really good chance that you've seen them before because they're all over social media. If you've ever searched for a tiny house or you've ever done anything with tiny houses that Google knows about, they've probably served you up an ad or Facebook knows about. They've got a very distinctive look. It's basically a very small but dark house, and it's got this giant window on the back of it, and all of their ads show somebody sitting in the bed looking out this window, drinking their coffee, and making you want to get there. I mean, they've got the advertising down. So my family and I are staying in one. We've stayed for 3 days, and you see tiny houses all over the place, but it's not too often that I get to be with a tiny house and really examine how someone else made it over the course of 3 days. I see them at shows, you see it, you can kind of judge by the quality, but to actually get a little bit more intimate with it over the course of many days, it gives you a lot more insight into it. So I decided to record a video so that I can share my experience and show you how some of the inside works, because I think there's a lot of value there if you're building your own house to actually see how somebody else is doing it. So let's start with the interior layout. So as far as the layout goes, it's quite nice for a rental. You know, it's only a 20-foot house for 4 people. We had 5 people and a dog. That's a lot of people. It's definitely probably a little too much for this. They only let you rent it out for 4 people, but we just rented it out for 4. There is like a storage area back here on the other side of the bed. In hindsight, what we would have done is brought one of our sleeping pads and put my daughter, who's only 8, put her over there. But it's really, you know, there's a lot of built-in features of this that are really nice. This on the website looked really rustic to me, but it's really high-grade marine plywood. If you look here, you can see there's like 10 layers plus a veneer. Up here, it's a little bit less expensive. You know, you've got maybe 7 layers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus a veneer. So this is a little bit lower quality, but still really high end. This is a, you know, this looks like stairs, but it's really a ladder. You cannot come down this. It's really tight up top, which is normal for a loft. And then these, you can't come down facing forward because there's just not enough clearance. So you do, you know, it is a set of stairs, but it's really high quality. I mean, they did a really good job. It's really quite strong. The storage is really nice. It's open storage. Doesn't look like that much, but then you've got this whole area up here, which adds quite a bit to it. So I really liked it for a rental. If I was living in this thing, there's a little bit different story. We've built some small houses before, and one of the big complaints of our small houses is that they don't have a place to lounge that's not the bed. And so this is guilty of that as well. So you've got the table, really nice table to sit, you've got a bed, you've got the kitchen, you got all, you know, you're checking all the boxes. But when you come home from a hard day's work, you know, it's nice to just be able to flop down on a couch and watch TV. And there's no couch here. You know, 20 foot is a really small house. Our most common popular size is a 24 and 28. That extra 4 feet would give you room to have a little bit of a, you know, like a love seat or a couch. So that would be, you know, my recommendation if you were, you know, using this. If you came here and used one of the Getaway houses as a guidance for what you'd want to live in, you know, you definitely want to add something like that onto it. In the kitchen, the other thing that was a little odd was that there's no hood. You know, very often, one of the things we recommend is that you have bathroom fans. This one has a bathroom fan located directly above the shower, which is perfect, because when you generate that steam, you want that steam to exit. Another feature that's really nice is they've got a switch here that automatically turns on. It senses moisture, and it automatically turns on to get the steam out. That's really important when you have, you know, rental where non-owners are in it that don't necessarily care about the moisture and the implications of that. So this is kind of like make sure that they do the right thing. But there's no hood, so when you're cooking, there's no place for the steam to evacuate, and a hood would be a nice, easy addition. What they do instead is they have these Lunos mechanical air exchange units, which are nice in cold weather climates, because what those do is they take the stale air from inside the house, push it out, and then bring in fresh air. But the problem with that normally is that you lose the energy that you've put into the house. Like if you've air conditioned the house or heated the house, all that energy just gets pushed outside, which would be the case for a hood, because a hood is a one-way vent. But this one pushes air out, pulls it back in, and as it does that, it passes through a ceramic honeycomb, and that ceramic honeycomb captures some of the energy. So hot air goes out, the ceramic honeycomb gets hot, and then when it starts to pull in cold air, it passes through that honeycomb, and that air gets warm again. So those are kind of nice. Those are quite expensive when I looked them up. You know, we've installed units like that are in the $100 range. Those are like in the $1,500 range. I don't know why they get so much for them. The refrigerator they selected, it's a really small refrigerator. One thing that we did miss was that it didn't have a freezer on it, like a little freezer compartment that we could refreeze our ice packs. But you know, when you have such a small refrigerator, you don't have a lot of options. I'm sure if we had a freezer, then we'd be missing the room that we had for food. So this was a little bit small. If they had pushed it down here, they could have utilized some more space, a little bit higher refrigerator. But you know, it's all, everything's, when a tiny house, everything's sacrifices. You got to decide what's important and what's not. The other thing that I found just a little annoying was that the sink was pushed all the way up against the wall here. When I was washing, I just felt like I was a little cramped standing up against the wall. If that had gotten moved over, you know, they have the room here, they could have moved it over here. But they're probably thinking that then you'd have a little bit of space over here that would be not usable, which, you know, just like I said a second ago, it's really just comes down to sacrifices. For a vacation rental, the house had a few nice features, like it included reading material and a radio. It also included this little box that you could store your phone in so that you weren't as tempted perhaps to use it while you're on vacation. There were these lights that automatically turned on when they got pulled out of the wall. I've never seen those before, and I thought that was really nice. They also included firewood and fire starters outside, which was really nice so that you didn't have to go to the store. You did have to pay for it though, but you'd expect that. Here's the price list for everything that's extra above the rental. There are things on there that you would expect to pay extra for, like the firewood and fire starters, but then there's also things on there that you get free virtually anywhere else, like coffee and tea. When it comes to utilities, each house has basically 4 hookups. They've got power, fresh water supply, and then wastewater dump, and then they also have fiber. And the fiber is used for internal use, but it's not, they don't provide actual internet with the tiny houses. So let's start with the fresh water supply. Right here we've got the fresh water supply coming out of the ground, and that is a heated hose. So that hose plugs in and it heats up so that during the winter you don't have any burst lines. If we follow this along and we go inside, here's the utility area of the house. If we look in here, the fresh water comes in here, comes along to a shutoff valve, and then goes down, and the fresh water goes into the hot water tank. You can see there's also a vacuum release valve up there. So fresh water comes into the freshwater tank, or excuse me, the hot water tank. This is an electric hot water heater. And then the hot water comes out, and now you have hot water and cold water running through the house. You can see here that the cold and hot water run that direction, and that goes ahead and has valves on it as well. And those are low point drain lines, so that you can drain the system during the winter so that you don't have any burst pipes. And then we've got the hot and the cold water run down here, and then they move along to the edge of the house and then continue down the edge of the house. And I'll show you what that looks like on the inside as well. When we're on the inside, that utility area is underneath the bed. Now on a normal house, you might want to save that space and just have some storage that goes underneath the bed. But in like I said earlier, in a rental, that's not as important. So this is all kind of sealed off. And it is not, you know, I thought there might be an access point from above here, but I don't see one. Everything is really screwed in. The joists that support the bed are permanent, so there's just no easy way to get to that area. But anyways, I showed you the hot and cold lines coming down this direction. They're run on the inside of the house, which is, instead of in the walls, much like an RV, which is really quite nice if you're in a cold weather climate. So those run along here, and then if we open up down under here, it's a little dark. But you can see the PEX, you can see the hot and cold lines. So those service the sink, and then the line goes in here. The cold line runs up, and if we go inside the bathroom, and on the inside here, you can see where the cold line would run up inside the wall, come out for the toilet. And then down inside there, you can see the hot and the cold line, and they elbow off and they come down here. And there's like a support beam right here, which supports the toilet, because the toilet, you know, has a lot of weight and you sit on that. Those lines run along here, and they run into the shower. I'm not sure why they don't run them closer along here, but it might just be more convenient based on where the joints are at. So they run up here and they service the shower. The next utility is the drain. So the drain is just like a household drain, so that there's no composting toilet or anything like that. All the drain lines are combined together, meaning the black water and the gray water all get combined together. And it goes through that 3-inch pipe that's down there You can, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see it right there. And so, and that goes downhill to a drain field that they made, a septic drain field that they have in the low point of the property. And so all the houses can drain to that one spot. Back underneath the sink, you've got the trap for the sink. So there's only 3 drain points. There's the sink, the toilet, and the shower. That inside there is going to Y, so it goes down, but then there's also a line that runs up in the walls, and we saw that on the outside. That's where the air inlet goes, and the air inlet allows air to enter into the plumbing system so that when you run the sink or when you flush the toilet or the shower, that volume of water that travels through the pipe, there's an option for, there's a way to relieve the pressure that gets built up from that vacuum. So that comes along here, Y's into the toilet somewhere, and then also this Y's in. There's actually quite a bit happening right here from the shower into the toilet. So it'd be interesting to take this off and see. There's a little vent in here, but I can't really see much inside that vent. Next, we've got power. This is the power coming in. This power is just like what you'd find at an RV campground. You've got 15 amp service, 30 amp service, and 50 amp service with individual breakers out here. The 30 amp the house itself is on 50 amp service. The 50 amp service is needed for these houses. This is a small house, and so normally on a 20-foot house you would only need 30 amp service. But normally things that generate heat, like the water heater and the cooking appliances, normally those are powered with propane so that you can have a lower energy draw in the house. But with these houses, they didn't want to run or piping for gas, so everything is run off of power. And so if everything's run off of power, that means it's going to have a much more higher energy draw. So you've got an air conditioner running off of power, you've got a water heater, you've got the cooking service. So there's a lot of power being pulled from there. Also, the air conditioner, if we come over to the air conditioner, it's a Mitsubishi unit out here, and if we look at the rating on this on the side, that is a 230 volt system. With 50 amps, there are 2 120s. There's actually 4 connectors. So if we look over here at the 30 amp connector, so 30 amp has got 3 plugs. You've got the ground, the neutral, and the hot. So there's only one hot, and so that's 30 amps on a single hot. If I were to take this out, you would see that the 50 amp connection actually has 4 plugs. So you got the ground, the neutral, a hot 1, L1, and a hot 2, L2. Each one of those hots is actually 50 amps. So you actually have, not only is it higher capacity, 50 over 30, but there's actually double. So it's quite a bit more. What's really unique about having the 2 hots is you can combine those together. There's 2 120s together to create 230. Now, most RVs, even if they're 50 amp, they don't do that. They don't combine them together, because if they ever have to run off of a generator or something, if they have to run off a generator, they won't be able to get that 230. So they don't normally do that. But in this house, they went ahead. They know it's not going to run off a generator. They know it's going to run off of power. So they went ahead and used a 230 volt air conditioner, even though that's pretty unstandard. So we see here, we've got the wire coming off of here. The wire gets plugged in. This goes to a breaker box on the inside, and then that gets split off from the breaker box to power the various utilities. For the electricity that I showed you outside, that 240 comes to a breaker box that's down here. If I move this out of the way and open that up, you can see that they have a main cutoff on the top right. The only 240 appliance is the air conditioner up here. They've got a breaker for outlets, lights, the hot water heater, which is 120, the hatch, which is all the equipment down in the hatch, basically the dehumidifier and the networking equipment. And then they've got, like I said, a main cutoff. Lastly, we have this box. This box confused me for a little bit because I thought it might be internet, but then when I look at the networks that are available, there's no internet out here. So I didn't know what it was, and I obviously didn't want to open it up. So I traced the line, and I see that it is actually fiber. So these houses are equipped with fiber internet. They're just all the SSIDs or all the networks are actually hidden. It's used for an internal system that monitors the house for leaks and unlocks the door and controls the air conditioner when someone's not in it. That's called a Lynx system. So even though they have internet, you can't actually access the internet yourself, which is kind of interesting. But if we go in here, we can see that right there, there's the Lynx system, and then there's also the access point for the system as well. And when I turn on when I do a Wi-Fi finder, I can see that there are like 6 different hidden SSIDs, and then I can see all the various SSIDs, hidden SSIDs saying that a lot, for all the various units. So one more thing while we're in here, while we're in this little utility cabinet, if you look back there, that unit back there is a dehumidifier, and you can see the drain coming out the back where it drains out the bottom of the house. That's kind of interesting because, you know, these houses are going to be sitting empty potentially. The last thing you want to do, they're in the forest, there's a lot of moisture. The last thing you want is for mold or mildew to start to develop. So they equip each one with a dehumidifier, which I think is pretty smart. The only thing that's interesting is there's so much room in here. This little utility cabinet, if this was a normal house that you were living in, you wouldn't want to waste this much room that you could use for storage. But honestly, for a rental home where someone's not got a lot of junk that they're storing or a lot of stuff that they need to store, this, you know, it's fine. It's fine that they've got such a large amount of room. I don't feel like there's not a lot of storage room in the house. This is directly underneath the bed. So it's probably, you know, it's not something you'd want to do on a house that you were building for yourself, but for, you know, a rental unit, it's fine. One thing that I do think, though, is that the accessibility of that unit back there, if there was any kind of maintenance that needed to be required on that, which seems like it would be. I mean, there is a filter right there on the side that you could probably crawl in there and get access to, but it's just not very accessible. So if that unit failed, you'd have to be crawling underneath all this plumbing. It's a really tight fit. So it's a little bit of a weird placement, but I'm sure it works for them. This is our personal cooler or portable refrigerator that we bring with us when we go camping. We got 5 people in our house, so we need a lot of room for food. This is not provided by Getaway. For the siding, they're using some kind of shiplap siding. I've never seen. I mean, it's definitely a natural product. You can see where they filled in all of the knots and everything. This is shiplap. I can see underneath the edge of it that there's a little bit of an overhang. They do put a glue on every one of them. Putting siding vertically is a little bit of a challenge because even though there's overlap, the overlap doesn't overlap in a way that water, when it sheds down, it will not get into the cracks. Like, even though this has an overlap, it can still work its way back there. So to counter that, they add glue in here, and they've got some kind of you know, it looks like maybe a rain screen or something. As far as the community itself goes, like the land that the property is actually on, it's not, I would say, not that great. I love the aesthetic of it. It's out in the woods. As far as the lettering, the fonts, and, you know, stupid stuff like that, I really digged it. It's dark colors of everything, and I really like the look of it. But there's really nothing to do on it. And I mean, it is called Getaway, so you are getting away, but I was there with my family. And if I was there with just my wife, getting away would probably be great. I'd love to just sit by a fire and, you know, cook and read and do whatever I can do by myself. But when you're there with a family, your family wants to get out and do things. And so the place is called, the one that we went to was called Getaway Lake Hartwell. You know, Lake Hartwell, it's got that in the name. You would assume that you would be able to have access to the lake or at least see it. But no such luck. I mean, you had to drive 15 minutes just to get to the lake. There was no water access. There was a pathway that you could hike on, but that was even partially closed. So if you want to actually do something, if you wanted to do anything, you had to leave the park, or the campground, which kind of stunk. You know, we do a lot of camping. We go to a lot of campgrounds. A lot of them have a playground or just something to do that's a little bit more tailored to kids. This is definitely not tailored to kids at all. So if you have a family, I would think twice before going there. But if you're just going there by yourself or with another couple, it's probably great.